so I'm going to call to order the October 18th, 2021 meeting of the Carson City's Open Space Advisory Committee. We'll start with roll call.
Chairperson Welch.
Present.
Vice Chair Inverson. Member Martinovich.
Present.
Member Kimbrough. Here. Member Guillory.
Here.
Member Burge.
Here.
Member Curry.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Thank you. At this time, we'll take public comment. I see we have a couple of folks here. More than welcome to comment on any topic that's relevant to the Open Space Committee. They are on our first item. Okay, very good. Is there anyone on the phone?
There are no callers on the line at this time.
Okay, so we will move on to approval of the minutes. Do any of the members have any corrections or additions for the minutes? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second? Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to abstain since I was absent from the last meeting.
Okay, thank you. Okay, our first item is a presentation and updates from the Friends of Silver Saddle Ranch, sometimes called FOSSR, regarding the organization activities for the calendar year 2021. Mr. Donaldson?
I'll go ahead and introduce. So for the record, Lindsay Boyer, Open Space Manager. Tom Donaldson, the president of FOSSR, was unavailable to attend tonight. So we have Dave Deneen, who is another member of the FOSSR board, and he is going to provide us some updates on what they have been up to.
Great.
There you have it. So I'm David Deneen. I'm a member of the board, and I've been a member for about 3 years. It's a great place. We love this place. That's why we work so hard for Silver Saddle. This past year has been a little different, just like everything else. But between smoke and COVID and everything else has been a little different. Fires on the hill behind us and things like that too. But we work very well with Lindsay and the rest of the group there. We do a lot of things together and work on a lot of things. We worked on the kiosk panels at Silver Saddle Ranch, helped with that. Helped with the interpretive panels at Buzzy's Ranch. Of course, we had the Jazz and Beyond Festival, which did really pretty well considering it was really smoky and hot. But it was well attended. We had a presence there, sandwiches, drinks, the house was open, that sort of thing. I brought the mules out, but we did not give wagon rides because it's not fair to give wagon rides when they'd be sucking in all that smoke. So, but they were there so they could be seen and that sort of stuff. Craig, one of our board members, has been doing a bunch of the historical tours, along with, I believe, a ranger, right? Yeah. And those are really popular. They had to cancel the September one. That was smoke again for that one. Everybody was canceling because of the severe smoke. So they canceled that one. We'll be working with Lindsay and the rest of them on the quality of life celebration at the end of this month. We will have some wagon rides that day available. And then, of course, we're working with everybody on the Homestead Holidays again, which was a big hit a couple years ago. And we'll be doing that again. We had one meeting on it so far, and I'm sure lots more to come. So that's pretty much all I have to say.
Okay, well, thank you for all your work, and certainly pass along to the board and your members how much we appreciate the work you're putting into this. We're looking forward to both the celebration of quality of life as well as the Homestead Holidays.
I think a couple of things I might have forgotten too. I think we're working on maybe re-siding the house, looking into what's proper for that, and then we're also looking into some irrigation around the house too, because there used to be a lawn around it in the past, so that's something kind of on the burner right now too.
Okay, great.
Cool.
Any of the members have any questions or comments? Certainly, Mark.
There we go. Could you let me know who the members of your board are so we can hear their names here?
Okay, I better not forget any.
That's okay, that's a test.
Tom Donaldson,
Okay,
Mike Drews,
cool.
Craig Swope, Kathy Sylvia, David Deneen, and what? Oh, Michael Bish and Nancy Santos.
So Mike and Nancy are still,
Yeah, Nancy not quite as much. She's been really busy, but yeah, everybody else is still very involved.
you guys do a great job.
Thank you.
That's great to keep that together.
Yeah,
It was
we
important.
have a lot of love for that place, as I think everybody does. It's a special place in the city, so.
I was there when BLM bought that, and we went on a tour to Arizona and Colorado to look at other properties that are managed that way. And you guys are doing a good job.
Okay,
'Cause
great,
it's
thank
still
you.
there and it still remains, it keeps its character.
Yeah, exactly.
Very important. You guys
That's-
are doing a great job.
Great, thank you.
How do you put masks on the mules for this thing, the smoke, you know?
I don't think they can get it.
Yeah. Thank you for what you do.
Great,
It's
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so moving on to the next agenda item for discussion only, presentation updates. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, for discussion only, discussion regarding the potential Old Woods Ranch Conservation Easement Acquisition and the Forest Legacy Grant. So it's Lindsay, you going to take the lead on this?
Yes. So for the record, Lindsay Boyer, Open Space Manager. Alicia Raban from Nevada Land Trust is going to join at some point as well. She's running late, so I'm going to tee up the background and overview and discussion, and then when she arrives, we'll have her speak to some of the history as well. But we wanted to bring this item before the committee. Everyone is relatively new, and this item hasn't really been brought back around for a while. It's been a long-term discussion that the city's been having with the Old Woods Ranch family regarding this property, going back many, many years. So I wanted to bring it back before the committee, kind of give you guys some background and history, and then a little bit of updates regarding some of the developments that have been happening with the grant recently. So the Old Woods Ranch is 130 acres approximately, located in the Kings Canyon Highway 50 area. It's located directly adjacent to Horse Creek Ranch, the other conservation easement that Carson City holds. So they kind of share the irrigated meadow, spans between both properties there. And discussions related to this land preservation effort have gone back to about 2007, perhaps even sooner or earlier. That was the farthest back that I could find. So it's certainly been on the city's radar for some time. The property is, in addition to those irrigated meadows, also comprised of some conifer forests. There's some aspens up there. There is a creek that runs through the property, so there's some important riparian zones. And then there's some upland sagebrush areas with the property as well. And there is sort of active cattle ranching that happens between the two properties. They do grazing activities and kind of go back and forth between Horse Creek and Old Woods Ranch. It's also adjacent to some of existing open space that we purchased outright up in that area. The Tanu Lua open space that we recently made the decision to name back in April is located directly adjacent to this property as well. So the Old Woods Ranch family is a large family. There's lots of different members involved, and they've all kind of been in a variety of discussions through the years about what they want to see done with the property and how they want to preserve and protect it. And they've been working with Nevada Land Trust, who is a partner of ours, for several years, just kind of discussing approaches to how they want to preserve this property. And they really like the idea of a conservation easement. So, we talked about conservation easements a little bit when I brought the Horse Creek Ranch monitoring report to you guys, but as a little refresher, a conservation easement is a document where essentially the development rights are purchased for a property, allowing it to remain in the ownership of that family or entity, but apply some restrictions on the property so it can't be developed, and so it protects it in perpetuity. So they are interested in entering into something similar to the Horse Creek Ranch Conservation Easement, have even used that as a template to look at potential tenants and things that they want to have included there. So there's been kind of a meandering discussion and efforts related to how this, potential acquisition could be funded. And dating back to about 2016, a grant was submitted to the Nevada Division of I don't believe it's directly with Nevada Division of Forestry, but they're a partner, but they submitted a grant to the Forest Legacy Program. And that's a grant program that directly supports preserving forests. And we have gotten some of those grants before, funded an acquisition up in the Ash Canyon area several years ago, but it's a very competitive grant process. Usually really large tracts of forested lands are the ones that end up getting funded. So in 2016, when this was first submitted to that grant agency, it was not funded at that time, and the feedback was essentially that this tract of land was not large enough or forested enough to be truly eligible under their criteria. And so Nevada Land Trust is, a land conservancy, and they have been working with several other properties in the area. So there's one in kind of Upper Clear Creek and one in Washoe Valley, I believe. And so the grant was kind of reshaped, and there was additional properties that were added into the grant to strengthen the nomination. So there was more acreage, more forested lands, and that was submitted in 2020. And we're currently just in the process of waiting to hear back on whether or not that was funded or not. If it was funded, then we would be looking at potentially Carson City to supply the matching funds that would be required for that grant, which are probably at a minimum about $50,000, but doesn't include some of the appraisal costs and things like that. And of course is also dependent on the actual appraised value of the properties, and that's a little bit of an unknown right now too. So the actual matching contribution is not totally cemented in stone, but that would be sort of the ballpark that we would be looking at. So for tonight, I really just wanted to, provide you guys with background and really just get you up to speed on this potential and have a discussion about this potential opportunity. So with that, I will take any questions.
Lindsay, what's the time frame in terms of when they would have a decision on the grant? Do you have any idea?
It should be very soon, like any minute now kind of thing. Yeah.
Thank you for the report. I have a couple questions. So first of all, the money, the match, it isn't on those other two properties, and that's what was in your write-up. It's just on the two parcels as part of the Old Woods Ranch.
That's correct. So for our purposes, we would only be supplying the match for the Old Woods Ranch component, and the matching funds for the other properties would be provided from alternative sources.
And if we heard back like soon and received the money for the 75%, the other part of it, is the 50-ish plus or minus part of our budget somewhere?
So the way that our budget is made up is we have line items for things like staffing, maintenance management, things like that. And then we have an account that's called undesignated. And that is where kind of all of the rollover unallocated funds go into. And so it's just kind of a steadily accruing account. We used to have a separate one for land acquisitions, but we've kind of rolled that all just into an undesignated line item. So it's not specifically budgeted anywhere, but there is a sum of money to support acquisitions and other.
So we have
things.
it available that should that come to be, and the timing is in that way. Okay.
We do, yes.
And then you also talk about the connectivity. to connect trails in there. And so is the Oldwood Ranch conservation easement part of that connectivity? And then you talk about other adjacent private properties and the connection. Is that a part of this, or is that sort of a separate parallel track?
Sure. I would like to invite our trails coordinator up to speak to the trail connectivity piece.
Sure. For the record, Greg Bergeron, Trails Coordinator. So a number of years ago, there were several different alignments that were created, and with the goal of being able to connect Clear Creek to the Ash to Kings Trail. And the ultimate goal down the road is to have a CR Front Trail that goes all the way from northern Washoe County down to Alpine County, kind of lower on the mountain, not on the rim. So this would be a component of that. And of those options, one of them would utilize the Old Woods Ranch, but it would also have to get easements across other parcels of private property to the east. And that has not come to fruition. The other alignment would require access across the William Fagan property, which is ours, but there's a conservation easement prohibiting the construction of a trail across that property. So the third option, which is an acceptable option, would be able to utilize public properties entirely without utilizing any private property at all. It would entail using part of the existing Kings Canyon Road to get to the Ash to Kings Trail, but I feel it's an acceptable option, and so we could make the connection without having to exercise an easement across the Old Woods Ranch and utilize those other properties.
So two questions going forward. One is that when we get the grant, we're going to think positively. Does that action come before this board to make up the match? Or or will you just move forward?
So the next step, I mean, right now this item is for discussion only, wanting to just get you guys up to speed. When and if we would need to make decisions on providing matching contributions, we would bring it back to OSAC for an actual recommendation to the Board of Supervisors to provide that match, and then ultimately it would go to the board for final approval.
Great. And then, Greg, the connectivity of the paths, it sounds like you had the three options. Will that also a final recommendation come to this board once we have more information on the acquisition for the conservation easement?
Not necessarily, but if we were to acquire the Old Woods Ranch under that conservation easement, I mean, we could obviously include in there trail connectivity as part of that easement, but if we exercise that, we would also have to accompany that, we'd have to have an easement across other properties to the east, which have not come to fruition. Right. So the access across the Old Woods Ranch without being able to connect to the east, we wouldn't even need to exercise that option.
Okay. So it sounds to me like next steps are we're waiting. That's where we are, in wait mode a bit.
So, yeah, we're essentially waiting to hear back on the results of the grant. And our partner, Alicia Raban from Nevada Land Trust, just arrived. So I'd like to invite her up to the table and maybe provide us a little bit more background on the grant process and just any other backgrounds that she can share about the history of this process.
Thank you.
Could I got another question for Greg, if we could just take care of that.
Sure, sorry.
Since we were dealing with that. Since the property at the north end of the Clear Creek Trail is somewhat problematic right now, would you hold off on building that trail until that issue is resolved?
Not necessarily. I think that the connection is still important. It's still an important goal that we want to make. And whether or not we have a trailhead there, it's still an important connection. And people, we could find ways to utilize other links to get back, to get onto the Clear Creek Trail if necessary.
Yeah, what I was getting at, Susan, is that the trailhead at Clear Creek, the north end, that property is kind of in flux, if you will. So how we would get through that property has to be resolved once all the issues, which get fairly complicated and we don't want to get into, but so you're aware that, there's that issue that we have to sort out as well.
Thank you, members of the committee. Director Budge. Hi, sorry, I'm only arriving now. But I've been asked to give a short overview of the Forest Legacy Program. Let me back up just a tiny bit. Looking forward to meeting those of you who are newer to the committee. We've been honored to be your open space acquisition partner for a number of years. And most recently on Eagle View, it's the Ham property. We've worked on Carson River Canyon, and then the open space area up Highway 50 near where we are talking about. So of course, our initial involvement, we opened our file in 2016, and we're just kind of peripheral to the project, and kind of came on board to assist your staff with the Forest Legacy grant application at that time. So we've put in now 3 grants, I believe, into Forest Legacy. It's a national program, entirely voluntary, designed to encourage protection of privately owned forest lands. The funding for Forest Legacy comes from the U.S. Forest Service through a grant program. To maximize sort of public benefits of working forests, they focus on acquiring partial interests in privately owned forest lands, hence the conservation easement, which are essentially the development rights, of course. And, the program is very supportive of the conservation easements because, among other things, they don't remove the property from the tax rolls. So the property stays in private ownership, and through partnerships, the property is managed by the landowner according to the tenets of the conservation easement in perpetuity. The Forest Legacy conservation easements restrict development, require sustainable forest practices, and protect other resource values. There's significant wildlife on this property. I walked in on the discussion about public access, and we have been talking to the family about some trail connectivity. We're still early in those discussions. I want to acknowledge Telsha Saunders, who, along with Michelle Murray, are the managers of the Old Woods Ranch. So joining us this evening. Not sure where you wanted me to go specifically, but we are waiting to hear about the grant, as Lindsay mentioned. In order to boost the project's, to create a more winning proposal in Forest Legacy, we decided kind of after that first application process to combine the Old Woods Ranch with 2 other properties that share some resource values and create a Sierra Front project area. And that increases our ability to pull matching funds from a variety of sources. So the Carson City match would be used just for the Carson City portion of this Eastern Sierra front. But there's another landowner that is contemplating a gift of a portion of their property, which will count toward the match for all. And so it's a little bit of a kind of a 3D game of chess, trying to sequence things and come up with that match requirement over the whole project. So the other two properties are the McCleary Ranch, which is the old List Ranch in southern Washoe Valley, so in Washoe County. And the other parcel is up on Highway 50. We're calling it the Upper Clear Creek parcel. And 54 acres up there just below the summit. It contains some of the best remaining stands of sugar pines on the eastern Sierra. So that is not sort of a ranching property, but Old Woods certainly is and has been for over 150 years. And then, of course, the McCleary Ranch, also an agricultural property. So we look at, protecting wildlife habitat and critical wildlife corridors. We protect water resources through tying water to land in the conservation easement document. Many resource values worthy of protection. The family have been remarkable stewards. They have been working on fuel reduction projects with the Nevada Division of Forestry for many years. Certainly one of the prerequisites for the project for qualifying for Forest Legacy. And we would imagine that they'll continue to be excellent stewards, which is one of the beauties of a conservation easement. I'm not sure where else you want me to go, but we're talking, we sort of moved into a different role in the project just a couple years ago. And we've been exploring not only the Forest Legacy funding, but some other potential public funding acquisition sources. So that's one of the things that Nevada Land Trust can bring to the table is sort of lay out an array of possible paths forward for acquiring fee title lands or interest in land through conservation easements.
Thanks, Alicia. I think that covers the background I was hoping to hear. I don't know if anyone has questions for Alicia specifically.
Let's start down at the end. Kelly and Casey, do you have anything?
I don't have any questions at the moment, but it strikes me that this parcel or this potential acquisition could go over the next 20, 30, 40 years as an important step to maintaining open space and a viewscape for people as they're driving up Highway 50 or coming down 50 from Tahoe. And a viewscape. I didn't do that. Yeah, and by remaining open and keeping it as a viewscape, that would mean that would minimize whatever potential future development that could happen there. Because it's a really nice looking area, I don't put it past somebody eventually, 20, 30 years from now, from figuring out a way to be able to develop it, to be able to have nice big houses with big views. So it seems to be a fairly, I sure hope that the grant comes through. Yeah. But I am a little concerned. I sure would like to be able to make sure that we can get some public access through trails. And I guess if I understood it correctly, I'm still learning the trail systems and the references by name. So it sounds like there's an option for trail access up there even without the property, but that perhaps the property itself could become part of a destination of a trail user. So that's it.
Want me to respond? I
Yeah,
need
I
to be
just wanted
smarter than this. Sorry.
oh, sorry, say the same. I think this is just an amazing project, and I really hope the grant comes through. I do have a quick question about the map. I don't see in the key, it's kind of it's south of Old Woods Ranch. It's kind of like that gray splotchy. What is that, like private land or?
So the map that was provided in your packet is one of the open space opportunities maps. So it shows pretty much the whole west side of Carson. So that's why it's a bit small. But the property in question, the gray parts are the portions that are in private ownership under the conservation easement with Horse Creek Ranch. The blue areas are owned by Carson City. And then the yellow areas where you can see the teeny tiny writing that says Old Woods Ranch and the property just directly west of that, those are the areas that we're discussing.
Okay,
does
so
that clarify
the
for you?
gray is also private.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. I see. I see where there's a dilemma there. Okay, yeah, I hope this all goes through. I think this is a marvelous idea and a marvelous project to connect everything. And that's all I have.
First, I want to thank the family. Having been involved with some of these processes, it takes a lot of patience and a real cool view and of the future of that property, and the family's willingness to look for a CE part is really a big deal. So the family needs to get a lot of credit for that. I mean, we talk, and you're sitting in the bureaucracy that moves it forward, but you pick some great partners. The Nevada Land Trust has a wonderful record and does a wonderful job with these things. And Alicia has been a champion for years in this part of Nevada, getting the greatest properties acquired and brought forward. But without the families being patient, there is no process. So thank you for that. And then I was curious, is SNPLA, will SNPLA do conservation easements, or they'll do those too? Or, and then when do you ever get to a point where purchase might even be talked if things keep tumbling along and doesn't happen?
Well, we look at all options coming into a project. We look at what the resource values there for protection. Sometimes that leads us to certain funding sources over others. SNPLMA could be an option. We still have a little bit of work to do, and I too am most grateful for the family's willingness to continue talking, because it does take a long time. And our fastest, the average acquisition start to finish is 5 years, and so that's. And I can give you examples of things that are way beyond that, and certainly a lot faster. But it does require patience. So thank you very much for mentioning that, and for your kind words about NLT. So yeah, there are some other things that we'd want to look for. I think the key to any kind of conservation project, and what drives most landowners, this family included, to participate is a deeply seated love for this land that means so much to them. And it's that desire, not to want to see it chopped up into smaller parcels, and something that can live on for future generations. We need to find, that balance between sort of the public benefits that are important to our funders, important to our partners, and I believe that is absolutely happening here. So I look forward to to continuing our discussions. The family has extended an invitation to the Open Space Committee, so whenever you say, I know some things have to be in place with open meeting laws, but we've been out before as a group, and it's probably time to visit again. Just nothing replaces actually being there and getting a sense of what is happening. But, conservation easements, when they're done well, really ensure that the interests of the funders are reflected, but first and foremost, that the family's wishes are honored. And in meeting their needs, then we can get the conservation done. So.
Susan?
Follow-up question. Who is making the decision on the grant? Does it go to National EPA? Is it or who does it go to?
I'm not exactly sure of the committee's name, but it does move well beyond the state. I believe there's a regional part of the process, and then the national sort of ranking, and that's kind of where we are on hold right now and waiting. So we've gotten farther this round than we have in the past. So we're, all fingers and toes are crossed and feeling very hopeful about that.
Thank you.
I do have a quick question. If we are lucky enough to acquire this and have the grant go through and we acquire as a conservation easement, I just want to confirm that it is the land owner that is responsible for the care and maintenance for such things as noxious weeds or anything like that, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we are not acquiring something that we will not be able to maintain long term.
I will mention that depending on the funding source, the ownership of the easement may be different. And it's my understanding that though attempts were made in the last several years to change this to allow partners to hold easements, currently we are looking at, in the case of forest legacy projects, that the easement would be held by the state. So, does that answer? Okay.
One thing that I think the members should be aware of, if it's fact is the case, that there will be some monitoring requirements which require staff time, or someone would be required to do monitoring. Is that correct?
So I guess Alicia should clarify further because I hadn't heard the piece about the state. So the easement would actually not be held by Carson City. It would be the state of Nevada, and they would be responsible for that monitoring?
That's my understanding, yes.
Who would be holding the state accountable to make sure the monitoring is actually happening?
The funders.
Okay, any more questions, comments?
I have an item I'd just like to clarify. I believe it was Member Burge who had made the comment that this, might be a really great destination for the public. And just related to the trail connectivity and the things that we're discussing, it wouldn't be a specific destination. It would be more like a pass-through if we were able to get the other easements that were needed to create that trail connectivity.
And one thing to keep in mind, since we're talking about in perpetuity, even though today there are some barriers to having a trail through the property, that might change in the future. So having it in there that a trail is allowed, even though we know today we can't get a trail, might be something that we would want to request as part of the conservation easement.
I understand how important and essential access is in that area. And as I mentioned earlier, we are talking about what that might look like and where a trail could be sited to provide the connectivity, yet not negatively impact the family and their use and enjoyment of their private property.
And that's something, if we do a field trip out there, that we might want to discuss. Thank you very much. You want to move on, Lindsay, or do we have anything else that we want to discuss?
I think if that's all from the committee, we can move on.
Okay. All right. So next agenda item for discussion only, review and discussion of the Prison Hill OHV area monitoring report and updates on the Prison Hill OHV area. So Georgia and Greg.
For the record, Georgia Vasey, Senior Natural Resource Specialist. I will be discussing today the Prison Hill OHV area monitoring report that we have put together. Just a little bit of background. As you all know, because of the federal lands bill, several thousand acres were conveyed to Carson City. And part of that land transfer was a conservation easement with the Bureau of Land Management, which included Silver Saddle Ranch, Ambrose, and Prison Hill Recreation Area. And the southern part of Prison Hill Recreation Area for decades has been an area for off-road vehicle use, and much of it was unrestricted. And so with that, there has been several roads and trails that have become disturbed over time because of erosion, which is obviously, can impact wildlife and just overall recreational use. And so our team with the Open Space Division has been working diligently to create a plan to create improvements, particularly with erosion control. And so this monitoring report is trying to document, over time, the change over time that we are going to be seeing. So if you have a copy of the report, the very final page is a map that shows you that we have 20 baseline photo points. And at each of those photo points, we are taking a north and a south and east, a variety of photos. And a lot of it is concentrated in the areas that have received the most use. And so we're trying to make sure that we have a really comprehensive overview of the area. And that started in 2020. So these photos will be taken annually. We will also be taking photos of other things that we are trying to show with improvements like resource protection, graffiti, a bunch of various items. Also, of course, volunteer, engagement and construction. And so every year we will also be adding photos into the report that show some of our annual things that we're working on or places that we would like to focus on for the future improvements. And so if you have any questions regarding the report, feel free to ask myself or Greg, but Greg is going to be giving us an update on things that we're working on currently at Prison Hill this year.
So for the record, Greg Berger and Trails Coordinator. Like Georgia mentioned, when the Prison Hill Recreation Area was conveyed to us, the south end which has been motorized for decades, travel there was considered to be unrestricted, and we realized that was unsustainable, and so we took on a project to create an area that is more sustainable but also able to accommodate an increasing number of recreationists who participate in outdoor recreation by using motorized vehicles or OHVs. And so we partnered with the National Off-Highway Vehicle Conservation Council, or NOVAC, and in combination with grants from the Nevada OHV Commission, the Recreational Trails Program, and from Polaris, and help from host partners, we began making improvements to the south end of Prison Hill in about 2019. We have some of the work we've done include closure and rehabilitation of certain trails, route reconstruction, installation of drainage features, placement of informational wayfinding signage, involvement of volunteer organizations, creation of a beginner area, and other elements intended to just enhance the user experience, but also support a sustainable trail system. I don't have a lot to report as far as what we've done as far as activities from the last meeting until this one, but we will be beginning sometime in the next few weeks, probably in November, some more work that will include creation of some new routes and also continued work on rehabilitation to some of the areas that have been impacted. Throughout the summer, we've installed quite a few new signs. We also had help from some tech. I'll get to this in my other staff report, but we did have help from some technicians from the Nevada OHV Commission that it's actually work that's free to us or labor that's free to us, and they have helped with enhancing the beginner area and the tot lot, and they've helped with sign installation. They also helped with some rehab of some roads that have been created recently, just user-built roads. So they've been valuable to us. But anyway, there should be more to come in the December report as far as activities that have taken place, and we'll also hopefully have an updated map for the south end of Prison Hill by then. So, any questions?
We'll start at the other end then.
I think you guys are doing a great job down there. I'm sure you already are aware of this, but since you guys are kind of just starting at baseline for the photos, being able to take the photos in the same time frame each year is huge to help with the vegetation, because I've seen a lot of reports over different things where it's a January photo versus a July photo, and it's completely different area. So time frame, if you guys could, even if it starts in 2 years, set a time frame for each year. And then it's also great to see that Jeep Wagoneer or Cherokee out of that canyon. I don't know how you guys got it out doing what you did, but that was really impressive a couple years ago.
Oh, my turn. I was curious, this is the most comprehensive report I've ever seen on a OHV area, which just really speaks well. Because there were some vocal people in the community that wanted to understand why that's even an OHV area, and here you are right 5 minutes from town, in an area that had the historical use out there, and then all of a sudden, when Carson City became kind of responsible, it all of a sudden became this great need to resolve all those concerns. So who mastered the kind of template that you guys started using that brought all this together? That, because it's really comprehensive and well done. Who was kind of the master for that?
We utilized the Horse Creek Ranch monitoring report as a template, and that was put together at the time that the conservation easement for Horse Creek Ranch was developed. And that a lot of the areas of concern that are evaluated in that report are specifically outlined in the easement. So we did tweak that a little bit to make it match just the resource issues that we know are on the ground. But we recognize that that's a great template and wanted to kind of just start using that across the board for any monitoring that we're doing.
That was great. I actually have some questions that, in an area is difficult in there. What vegetation have you guys learned has been the most successful? And then what kind of barriers, which is always the biggest problem, is to keep people from going there once it's closed. What have you learned to be the best barriers, and what have you learned to be the best vegetation?
I guess I can speak to barriers, and that's always a challenge. But for us, I think that the key is providing opportunities that people want to use and seek, and so they're not looking for other opportunities. And I know that comes up a lot. I mean, why do you allow this type of activity or that type of activity? But or why do you allow people here or there? But if we don't provide opportunities for everybody who is wanting to utilize that area, then they will find those opportunities wherever. And so that's been one of the keys. And then also just the way that we're able to do some of the rehab. We've, for example, when we used the technicians from the Nevada OHV recently, we had them do it's what's called vertical mulching. And so to erase a road, they actually take dead brush that they can find locally or access it locally and plant it. It's not with the intent of it growing, but with the intent of it looking like there was a plant there, and so it visually erases the road, and that's something that we're able to do. And also signage, and the signage initially, we were losing a lot of signage, but over time, as we keep replacing it, it tends to remain, and the issues don't go away completely, but it's that active management that tends to keep people going where we want them to go, and not to go the places we don't want them to go.
And I can speak to some of the vegetation things. So we've only kind of just begun the process of doing revegetation activities out there, so we're still evaluating what's going to be most successful in terms of planting and seeding. But we have done some initial seeding out there with a native seed blend. We usually try to put together something that matches the vegetation that's already on site, knowing that if that's already doing well, let's go ahead and try to replicate that, put that back in. And then Georgia is a wonderful researcher, and she's found some really interesting revegetation techniques, specifically some that do some creative things with live sagebrush. So when sagebrush is in seed, you can actually saw off pieces of live sagebrush and stake it into the ground, and establishes kind of some sagebrush islands. So we're eager to put some of those things into effect as well.
That's great. I mean, this is like a success story to have a OHV area, high profile use of our resources, so close to town and well managed and well taken care of, and then all your stakeholders are the users that are helping you with this. So I think this is almost like a national model to me for something that has all those characteristics to be successful, and you guys are doing a great job. So that's all. Thank you for that.
I wanted to give you all kudos. I mean, this is amazing. I know there have been people that have complained about this, and I've seen the roads with the fake sagebrush, and it's like mind-boggling. And everything that you're doing here with all of the different groups coming together to help and participate because they care about the activity that they love to do. I agree with Mark. It's just, you guys really deserve a lot of credit for being so proactive with this. It's really exciting. So thank you for doing all of it. Can't wait to see as it continues.
Yeah, I can add on to that as well. I just moved here recently, and we went out there to check out the OHV area in 2019 when we first moved here. And the difference between then and now, and Lindsay, when you and I went out there before I started here, it's just really amazing, all the improvements you've done, and it's clear that it's being cared for. And I agree with the statement that you said about when the signs disappear, you go out and replace them, and you keep replacing them. At a certain point, they stay. And I think that, and the same thing, I guess, was written up about the graffiti that was on some of the rocks. You fix it, it happens again, you fix it again, and now it's not happening anymore. So when people see it's being actively managed, I think that then they realize it's important to take care of things, or at least not do things harmful. I had a question. I did have the same question about the season out, or picking the same point in time for the photography, for sure. And the other question had been, has there ever been a study? I searched the document looking for maximum capacity. Is there any information, like a traffic study about maximum capacity for OH vehicles out there, and how that would be monitored? I mean, is there such a concept in a 900 acre, that's what it was, right? 900 acres there? Yeah. Is there a concept of capacity for OHV at any one point in time, I mean?
Well, first of all, I just want to answer to the concern about taking photos at one given time. I think moving forward, we're going to plan on taking it around June. The first time that Lindsay and Greg were able to go out, that was earlier in the winter, but for now we're going to probably stick towards the summertime. As far as maximum capacity goes, I mean, as far as I know with Novak coming out, Greg, you can probably answer this better than me, but they brought out, a ton of volunteers at once, all full of their OHVs. I don't think there's ever been as many just as that one single day, and that was still technically okay to have that many vehicles out at the property, correct?
So I think, the whole purpose of our monitoring plan is to monitor the activities over time. And as we develop new trails and decommission other trails, and monitor activities, we will have to make that determination as to what is capacity. And if we exceed, if we get to a point where we feel like we're exceeding that capacity, then we'll have to discuss what actions may need to be taken. But at this time, I don't think that we're anywhere close to what would be the capacity out there. That the activity right now is not, it's not super heavy at any one given time. And so I think it's a matter of monitoring over time.
I thought I'd heard there was going to be, try to do a special event, and that's when you might start dealing with capacity. But if you have an event, it's all managed and people are controlled, and so you might have to come up in the permit how exactly you want it handled on site so they don't exceed capacity in one area or the other that you've been working to protect. So, but I don't know if some California group I thought wanted to come over and do something, but maybe that was something I heard wrong, which will certainly bring you to carrying capacity then.
We have had inquiries about events, and we're not opposed to events. We are stepping into that water very, very carefully, and monitoring and watching. And so far, we have not had an event other than the NOVAC conference in 2019. So, but it's something that we definitely are looking at, and we'll monitor carefully.
Thank you. I just echo what the other members are saying. You guys are doing a great job. The improvement out there in the last few years, I think, has just been astonishing. I mean, it was such a train wreck when we got this thing. I mean, it was just horrible. And I kind of get the feeling we're turning the corner now. That things are, you can really see that you've accomplished something, and it's really dramatic. And so, thank you. It's been great. Any other comments? Questions? Okay, Georgia and Greg, thank you very much. Greg is up again as Trails Coordinator report.
Okay, thank you,
For
Mr.
discussion
Chairman.
only. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so there is actually a lot going on with regard to trails right now in Carson City. It's a kind of an exciting time. Capital to Tahoe and Lincoln Bypass trails. On here, I said that the Lincoln Bypass trail was 80% complete. Actually, a week ago Sunday, we made the connection, and so it's not 100% complete. There's still some finished work that needs to be done, but it's essentially open for business, and we need to get signs on it. But that just a little bit of background. The reason it's named the Lincoln Bypass Trail is because it essentially bypasses the Kings Canyon Road. So if somebody, for example, is riding the Ash to Kings Trail, and they wanted to make a loop out of it, they would have to ride down the dirt portion of the Kings Canyon Road and then down the paved portion with the traffic. Now they can ride continuously on single track all the way to Longview, and it will wind up taking some bicycles and some pedestrians off of the Kings Canyon Road. So it's a great ride. It offers awesome views of the Border Ranch, views that most people aren't used to seeing. And if you have an opportunity to go out and hike or ride it, I would recommend that. It's really a nice trail. And Muscle Powered has been the driving force behind that from the beginning many years ago. It's been a long time coming, and they got the grant to get it done, and they've done an amazing job. Capital of Tahoe, same thing. We've been working on some segments. That trail is not open to the public yet in any place, and we won't be completed with that trail until sometime in 2022. We've been working on it and obtaining an easement for a segment of the trail that will cross private property, and it looks like we're really close to getting that accomplished. Yeah, so that we're hoping for 2022 for completion of that one. If not, then it will be sometime in 2023. But that will be the first single track connection from Carson City to Lake Tahoe. Kings Canyon Trailhead, a lot going on up there, so that construction is well underway, and the parking area, the paving, well, the excavation has been completed. The paving now, it looks like it won't be completed until January, February, because there are supply chain issues with the vault toilet, and so they don't want to pave until they have the vault toilet on site. So yeah, we're looking January, February for completion of that project, but that will make a huge difference for the top of Kings Canyon as far as parking and access to public lands up there. The waterfall trail had to be realigned because we wanted to move that trailhead farther away from residences. And with the help of member Kimbrough, we lined out a new connection, and that's been completed now. The trail is still not open because the parking lot is not open, but it will be a very, very nice trail with good connectivity, and that trailhead is going to provide access to Ashton Kings, Lincoln Bypass, and all kinds of public lands and trails in that area. Fifth Street Trailhead and Trails Project, we were delighted to find out that we won national recognition for that project. We're the winner of the Coalition for Recreational Trails Annual Achievement Award, and we won for community linkage. And so there's nationwide, well, it's for recreational trails program grants. Nationwide, all 50 states are eligible for grants, and they get these grants. There were a number of categories that people could enter their projects in, and we happened to win. Out of 50 states, we won for the community linkage category. So we're really, really excited about that. That project, just a little bit of background, it entails about 60 acres on the north end of Prison Hill, an area that was impacted, and it had miles and miles of old roads and trails. We decommissioned 5.5 miles of old roads. We closed down a bunch of social trails. We constructed 1.6 miles of new trail, which are accessible to somebody with an adaptive mountain bike. And what we found is that even though the usage has increased, the impacts have reduced, because we got rid of 5.5 miles of trail. We've reduced it to 1.6 miles, and people are staying on the new trail because it's a desirable place to be. Relating back to the OHV area, it's the same thing. If you provide people with the opportunity that they like, then they won't go create their own opportunities somewhere else. But the reason we got it for community linkage is because we took that area that was essentially way underutilized, and we made it an area or a hub that has a connection to over 14 miles of accessible multi-use pathways throughout the Carson River area. And across the street, you can access 25 miles of paved trails that provide links to the Carson City's downtown core. All accessible stuff. So a huge improvement in being able to provide connectivity for that kind of access. And now we're also applying for a grant that will connect the loop trails at the Fifth Street trailhead to the North Loop on Prison Hill and to other single track up there. So we want to improve our single track opportunities from that location as well. And that project, again, involved a lot of different people and organizations. Our department, of course, Public Works, Muscle Powered, the Boy Scouts were involved, Nevada Conservation Corps. Kudos to a lot of people that really helped with that project over the years. Let's see. I already talked about the Nevada Off-Highway Vehicle Program Recreation Technicians. They've been very helpful to us. National Public, oh, you know what I missed because my sheet does, it's got the non-motorized trails down here kind of out of the way, but I did want to mention that we're almost completed with Section 106 cultural surveys for a number of areas on the non-motorized area of Prison Hill, so we'll be able to start performing trail maintenance and realignments and making some significant improvements there. Also, along that line, we just found out this past Wednesday that we will be awarded a SNPLMA grant that we applied for last year, $2.4 million, to continue creating an accessible trail around the base of Prison Hill. This will completely redo the Coons Lane trailhead, make it similar to the Fifth Street trailhead. We'll improve the access road to the trailhead, and then we'll create an accessible trail that will link the Coons Lane trailhead to Clearview, and then to the south end of Prison Hill at the OHV entrance. But it's to be a non-motorized accessible trail. National Public Lands Day. We had 15 volunteers that showed up to help us do a cleanup on the east side of Sierra Vista Lane, and we more than filled a 20-yard dumpster, and that's really in contrast to what some have mentioned used to be the OHV area at the south end of Prison Hill, which now does not have that. It's relatively pristine down there now. So it shows the difference between an area that's actively managed and one that's not so actively managed. The east side of Sierra Vista Lane provides access to many hundreds of miles of trails in the Pine Nut Mountains, but it doesn't have that same active management. V&T Trail benches and interpretive signs. So a donor, Nazir Ansari, wanted to do a memorial to his late wife, Mary Ansari, and he funded the placement of 4 benches and 3 interpretive signs. And we'll have more. We're not quite done with the project yet. We'll have more to say at the meeting in December, but we did want to definitely reach out and thank Mr. Ansari for that generous gift for the funding of that. On the interpretive signs, my favorite is the one called "Moving Through Time," which is these are located on the V&T the old railroad grade on Lakeview Hill, and this particular sign talks about several historic locations that are visible from that location, including the Gumalanga Trail, which is the namesake for the newly named Gumalanga Open Space, which is nearby. You can view ancestral lands of the Washoe people, the arrival of the V&T Railroad, the first air flight in Nevada. The location of that flight can be viewed from that location. And also it talks about the 1919 Transcontinental Convoy, which was led by then Lieutenant Colonel Dwight D. Eisenhower, who later as president initiated the interstate highway system, a segment of which is also viewable from that particular location. So it's a kind of a cool spot, a cool view of Carson City and lots of things that past and present that are happening in Carson City. And the sign also is basically the first in what will be a series of signs, we hope, that the Historic V&T Commission will be able, or the Historic V&T Rail Trail Commission will be able to place throughout our region, from Reno to Minden and out to Virginia City, along the future V&T Rail Trail. And then also locally, we had the opportunity to have Nevada Regional Trails Training Program funded through Recreational Trails Program grant in combination with the American Trails Association, and they held workshops which provided training for people to learn how to build trails. But we also hosted one of the workshops in our OHV area, and great opportunities for a number of people to to partake in our area. So with that, are there any questions?
I was just going to comment, a lot of work done this summer. People get a chance, check out the Lincoln Bypass Trail. It is really good. It was well designed. When you walk these trails, I think sometimes you don't realize until you've been around the construction of these that, you know, these features like these rocks are all intentional. There's a lot of thinking that goes beyond or before you build a trail, and as you build a trail, there's a lot of tweaking. And so a lot of the features and the views that you get and those sorts of things don't just happen. People put a lot of effort into it. And the training that Greg was talking about allows the trail leaders and the people that are survey them and design them take advantage of that. And kudos to the muscle powered. You see them working here in what was called Heat Stroke Gulch, moving rocks with a high line. They spent some pretty hot days out there building that one segment of the trail. So with that, I'll open it up. We'll start maybe down here by left with Casey again.
Okay, you guys, it's driving me crazy. Look at the last picture on that packet. Either I'm getting senile or I'm losing it here, and it says you're at Lakeview Hill putting on that kiosk. Now, if that's Lakeview, I'm having some problems. It looks a little bit like Mexican Dam down there to me. Is that Lakeview? At where the trailhead is, where you turn around the horse trailers and everything?
No, okay, so that's why you're confused. So this is actually located at the top of the foothill trail, essentially, or where the V&T comes in at the by the freeway. So
Okay, now that totally makes sense.
the other Lakeview.
I thought that was the Lakeview at the top of Hobart Road, and I thought, that can't be. You guys are messing with me. All right, well, that solves that, so I can go to sleep tonight. Feel more. So one of the things I know, the success of your Lincoln Bypass Trail, I was out riding my bike this weekend, road bike, and that parking area is already getting capacity, and it hasn't even been known yet. So I assume it's probably on a plan somewhere, or somebody's going to complain. Because, I mean, there's no way, some people were parked sideways and some were crooked and some backed in. So it'd be nice if even there was some attempt to give some guidance so that you can load it up the best you can. So, but it was busy. There were at least 8 cars there, maybe 10, and about 10 in the morning.
So just to address that, when the pavement is completed, there will be striped parking spaces, and it will accommodate 25 vehicles. And the 25 vehicle number is more or less a compromise that we came to in discussions with local homeowners and things like that. So
This is the trail down on Longview and Kings Canyon?
this is I'm sorry, I'm talking about Kings Canyon Trailhead.
No, I'm talking
you're
about where the success of your Lincoln Bypass Trail has
mhm.
brought beyond capacity for that parking area.
You're right, yes,
Right,
that's
day one.
That's correct.
So I
Yes.
assume there's something in the radar or something. Or like I said, if you could lay out something that at least gives people understanding, you don't want people parallel parking there and they'll take up 4 spaces instead of 2. That
Yeah.
kind of a thing.
I know that is something we do need to figure out how we could increase parking there. There's probably not the opportunity to build a trailhead per se,
Yeah.
but we do need to address the parking issue.
I mean, I don't want to put you in a seat of uncomfort, but it's just something you're going to have to address because that surprised me. They'll start parking on the pavement around the corner or something, and then.
Yeah, agreed.
So, and then on Nazir, that's wonderful. Actually, his wife wrote a book, Place Names, so she's done a couple of those. And he was actually active with the Tahoe Rim Trail. He has a building named after him at UNR because he was a professor there. He was a wonderful philanthropic person. So that was cool. I didn't see his name. I was all excited. I hike the V&T Trail a lot from my house. I do a loop from my house, and I was so excited to see that. There was 3 people looking at it when I came up, and I had him move so I could take a picture. But his name wasn't on there, so I wondered. And then I love seeing the V&T logo on there already. I thought, wow. So you were able to get that on there before you put him in place. So kudos. And I saw another bench placed down farther today, I think, or yesterday. Way down towards where the junction is to go down to the hospital. So you guys, I mean, your report, I'm working with Worcester County, all of their landowners there, and you're doing more stuff here than 6 land management agencies in Washoe County. So it's pretty phenomenal what you're doing here. I mean, that's a scale of things, and this is far exceeds what goes on and where at least 200% more people live, at least maybe like 500%. So excellent job. Keep giving you accolades, but you deserve them. Thank you.
Also, just wanted to mention that the recognition to Marion, is still coming, and that will be the memorials on those benches will be installed soon. So that's why I said that the project is not 100% complete yet, and we'll have more updates and more to talk about that at the December meeting.
Oh, cool. All right.
This is a really good report. It's fun to see the progress that's being made. From my background, the part that it's not going to be paved and then you got to go through a winter shutdown, and I'm assuming that's through another agency within the city that will be monitoring the runoff or anything, the impacts through there. Would we as open space have any input or issues related to that?
So there's been a lot of momentum on the project, a lot of things happening recently. But to clarify, I believe the parking lot itself will be paved and the road will be paved. It's the piece where the restroom is specifically, where our signage will be. That portion will not be paved.
Okay, that's way different. Yeah, just because if you're redoing a lot of the earthwork that you'd be doing getting through the winter.
Yeah,
so.
everyone is eager to see that come to some form of, completion this winter. We don't want to have a winter shutdown. So thanks for bringing that up so I could clarify that.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to show my prejudice here. I really like these moving through time, but at some point, maybe you could give some thought to having signs describing the geologic history of this part of the world, because it's actually quite fascinating to people like me. Other people might find it incredibly boring, but I find it interesting. So just a comment, something that you might consider for the future. Okay, with that, we can.
Let me follow up with that. I want to the geology of the Carson Range in a written format, and the geologists have got to give better terms about what there is out there, so that all as lay people understand what it actually means versus spending most of our time with a dictionary trying to figure out what each one of those words means. So if you can solve that for these guys to do the interpretive panel, you'll be number one here. So, and actually, it's one of the most sought after subjects when you take people outdoors. They want to know about geology, but it's a very difficult thing to tell them sometimes. But the terms you guys use drive me crazy.
We love them.
Hey, Lindsay, on that note, if you guys ever do go that route, let me know, and we can get the Nevada Bureau of Mines and Geology involved on that, because that's something that they do on a frequent basis in this area.
Yeah, we frequently confuse each other. So, okay, so moving along to 8B, Senior Natural Resource Specialist,
Excuse
Open
me.
Space Manager Report.
Excuse me. Yoo-hoo. Hi. Remember, I wanted to ask a question.
sorry.
I couldn't find
Sorry.
my notes on that
Found your
one.
notes?
Yeah. Regarding the Kings Canyon Trailhead area, and the, not the delays, but the completion coming, are you guys planning to have any sort of like celebration or anything? Because I've been anxious to get back out there, and I'm very excited to see how you've realigned the trailhead area. And,
When the trailhead is at a point of substantial completion, most likely when, the restroom and everything is all put in, we will want to show off the project. Given the sort of, 25 or so spaces of capacity we'll have up there. It'll most likely be somewhat of a private event. We'll invite OSAC, Parks and Recreation Commission, the Board of Supervisors, the mayor, staff, things like that, but it most likely won't be open to the entire public to come. But we do want to celebrate that achievement because it's a really big deal.
Okay, so now we're moving on to 8B, Senior Natural Resource Specialist and Open Space Manager Report. Georgia and Lindsay.
All right. For the record, Lindsay Boyer, Open Space Manager. I will take the lead on this report. So, providing an update on the Prison Hill fire and the restoration progress. I can't recall at the last meeting if we had gotten the news or not, but we were officially awarded $20,000 from the Dream Tags Charitable Fund to help support some of the restoration efforts out on Prison Hill. So we will be doing an aerial seeding of native plants sometime soon. So we're very excited about that, very appreciative of that funding source. In the meantime, Georgia and I have been setting up photo monitoring points up there. In a similar vein to the OHV area monitoring report, we really want to be able to evaluate the re-veg success. So we'll be tracking that through time with some vegetation monitoring and some photo point monitoring as well. There will be some community volunteer events to help with that effort. We've been in talks with the Sagebrush in Prisons Project. They work with the inmates at the Northern Nevada Correctional Center, and they grow up sagebrush seedlings for use in restoration. And we're hopeful to collect a bunch of seed this fall so that we can then give that seed over to them and have them grow up some plants that we can use in restoration on Prison Hill. So we're hoping to do that soon. And then I mentioned the sagebrush caching technique where you cut off live limbs of sagebrush and stake those in. So we're hoping to do that in a few key areas as well, so we can really get a variety of techniques in and hopefully get the best re-veg success that we can. We've been happy to see some of the precip that we've gotten so far, and we hope that that continues because that's one of the biggest factors in a successful re-veg project. So we'll be moving right along with that. Related to Carson River specific updates, we were in the process of putting together a small working group to go out to the river this year to take a look at the Eurasian water milfoil issue, start to talk about it on a multiple county scale since we know that this is a problem throughout the Carson River. Unfortunately, that was another event that got canceled due to air quality. And then at a certain point in the growing season, the Eurasian milfoil does drop off. So we kind of missed our window to be able to really go out with all of our partners and take a look at it. But we will be definitely planning for that next year so that we can really start to get a handle on things. We've been in talks with the Nevada Department of Agriculture related to some potential biocontrol options for the Eurasian water milfoil. So we continue to seek solutions for that very complex issue. Related to some noxious weed sites along the river, we do have a monitoring plot located at the Mexican Dam where we've been working on trying to reduce the population of Canada thistle, which is a perennial noxious weed. Working with the Nevada Department of Agriculture, we've been releasing what's known as a rust fungus on these plants the last few years. And this fungus is meant to basically inoculate the plants, spread onto other plants, and it reduces the reproductive ability of the plant. So it's another tool in the toolbox to try to reduce our reliance on herbicide, especially in locations adjacent to the river where we want to protect water quality. So Georgia and I went out earlier this year and we released the fungus again. It's something you do on an annual basis until you can really get the population established. And we do some monitoring there as well. And anecdotally, we've seen that there's definitely a reduction in plants out there, and they are absolutely not going to seed in the same way that they were. They're not flowering. So it's certainly doing something. So we've been excited to kind of implement that experimental project. In terms of community programs and education, Georgia has been busy planning some stuff for the fall. So, my goodness, these were not hung well. So we participated in Snapshot Day last Friday. We had a group of high school students from Sierra Lutheran, and we took them out to Fuji Park and Clear Creek, and we taught them about water quality, stream health, vegetation, all that good stuff. So we're excited to be able to do education programs, which have been kind of on the back burner since COVID. We'll be working with river wranglers this week to do some restoration and planting out at Moffett. There was a fire there a couple years ago, and we did some initial herbicide treatments the first year, and we're going back now and going in and doing some planting. So we're super excited for that. There will be a community volunteer planting day also this week on Wednesday to finish up those efforts, and then George is planning some additional re-veg projects in November out at Buzzy's Ranch along the new trail. There's some areas we want to revegetate as well. So if anyone's interested in joining any of our programs, you can reach out to Georgia, and she can let you know when those are being planned for. We appreciate all the planting hands we can get. In terms of our Section 106 projects, we have actually gotten quite a few completed since we really started the effort of biting off these different areas where we're trying to get clearances. So as Greg mentioned, primarily right now we're waiting on some clearances associated with the Prison Hill West project so that we can do some maintenance on those single track trails. And that would also include the Section 106 that will be required for the grant that we were just awarded through SNPLMA. In addition to that, we are working with SHPO to develop a site stewardship volunteer program out at Silver Saddle and Carson River Canyon. That's one of the requirements of the programmatic agreement, that these cultural resources are monitored on an annual basis. So working with SHPO, we're going to be able to get some volunteer help with that. So it's not all on staff. So it is a process of developing the program and the monitoring methods and getting volunteers recruited and trained. Our partners from Foster will be participating in that, at least at Silver Saddle Ranch. So we're super excited to have their help in that as well. Related to the Kings Canyon project, we've heard a lot about the trailhead, but there's also the dirt road portion. So from the trailhead and beyond, about 2 miles up the road, we do have a project from the Recreational Trails Program to go in and do some maintenance and repair of that road. It was severely damaged, eroded during the floods of 2017. So we're finally getting around to being able to fix that. It's been a long-term project. So the construction for that is anticipated to begin in mid-November. So that should be teeing up pretty soon, and we're really excited to get that done so that we can have a safer access for motorized vehicles up there and people won't be stranded anymore. Other items to mention, the Quality of Life celebration. So for our Quality of Life month that we discussed at the previous meeting, we are going to be kicking that off with a celebration at Silver Saddle Ranch on Friday, October 29th from 1 to 5. All of you are invited. There will be a more formal invitation to follow. We're just working on getting all the details hammered out, but there will be live music, cowboy poetry, food, beverages, wagon rides, some speeches from some of the people who were critical to getting the Quality of Life initiative passed, and just really a celebration of all the wonderful things we've been able to do in our community with that funding. So we're super excited for that and would love to have you all join us. And lastly, I would like to tack on to the really great news that Greg shared about the SNPLMA grant that was awarded for the next segment of the Prison Hill Loop Trail. In addition to that, Carson City was also awarded $1.8 million to fund the water rights acquisition at Buzzy's Ranch. So for those of you who aren't aware, Buzzy's Ranch, located off Carson River Road, we acquired that a couple years ago, but the city does not own any dedicated water rights associated with that property. We've kind of been piecemealing together a bunch of different water rights to keep that property irrigated. So the fact that we were able to get the funding awarded so we can actually purchase a portion of the water rights that we need that will be under city ownership is absolutely huge. It isn't all the water that we need, but it is a tremendous start. So between Greg and I, we just brought in $4.2 million. So I would really like to thank Greg and all of our staff for that incredible accomplishment. So with that, I will take any questions.
What's your finder's fee on that 4.2?
Yes, where's my commission, Jen?
I know you can't see me, but I've just been sitting here all night with a big smile on my face. And I'm really excited about everything that you've been able to accomplish and with more to come. So thank you for all of your hard work.
No, accolades. You know, I said you've done more than all of Truckee Meadows did. Now you just added on to the pile even more. I mean, that's more probably grants than they got. So that's just wonderful. And it's on your own initiative. So everybody needs to understand that. Nobody's telling you to go get these grants. You guys are out pursuing these grants on your own initiative. So that's a big deal. So that's the accolades are truly yours forthcoming. I only have one simple question, and I thought that Kings Canyon was a U.S. Forest Service road, but so the city owns those first 2 miles there, so you can grade their road. Is that?
That's a great question. So the entire road is on Forest Service property, and when the damage occurred in 2017, we were having a lot of safety issues with people getting stranded. It was pretty much impassable at the time. There was a lot of safety concerns. So knowing that the Forest Service did not have a budget for any form of road maintenance, the city manager's office directed Open Space to try to identify a solution to fix that safety issue. So we've been in the process for applying for and seeking grants in conjunction with the Forest Service so we can go ahead and get that fixed. So we did apply for a Rec Trails grant back in 2018-19 to fund the actual repair of that road. And as a component of that grant, we will be required to maintain the road, keeping it open and accessible for 25 years.
Wow.
So we will be taking on some maintenance responsibilities there. I'm hoping once the road is finished and constructed correctly with drainage and all the things that the maintenance requirements will be somewhat minimal and can be completed with our staff in-house. So hopefully it won't be too much of a funding requirement on an annual basis. And we do have agreements with the Forest Service that will allow us to maintain that road as well as take over ownership and management of the trailhead once it's completed. So.
Okay, well, that answers the question. Yeah, so there'll probably be some oversight weather engineers there too then, huh? Boy, we might take those all down before we go home here tonight, that poor artist. That's just strange if it's glue or something, just gave at the same time. So that piece of road would be nice. Maybe someday they'll finish it all the way up to Spooner, but that first 2 miles, that's great. And thank you for all your work, you guys. Good job. And I hope to be there for your celebration on the 29th to celebrate all this work.
Just a quick couple questions. On the Prison Hill fire, has there been any natural revegetation coming back?
We were up there doing our monitoring last week or the week before, and there seemed to be one plant that seemed to be coming back. There's a little bit of resprouting happening on the plants that typically resprout as far as shrubs are concerned. And then forb-wise, there was just this one guy we kept seeing, but it's very early to be able to see natural recruitment, but we hope that that's going to be a component as well.
And just to add to our restoration plan, I talked to several land managers on what would be the best way to go about restoring Prison Hill at this area. We did a bioassay to see how much cheatgrass was potentially going to come up, and we believe hopefully that the fire burned hot enough for this first year that it was advised to really heavily seed the area. But of course, that must dovetail with a really nice weather event. So seeing this precipitation coming this week is definitely it makes me feel a little bit more confident that hopefully we'll get another one of these in the next month and have it timed well to have our seeding, which will have about 22 pounds per acre of mostly perennial grasses. And so that's going to really take off. And then, like as Lindsay was saying, we're going to be trying out the sagebrush caching, which is really an interesting technique where we'll be removing the sagebrush and pinning it down under mesh, and it creates these sagebrush islands that will have little saplings, because the sagebrush seed is pretty much only viable for that first year. So we're going to try to be moving it into areas that are especially don't see any vegetation currently. So anyways, we'll hopefully see maybe after some of this snow and we'll hike back up there again that we have even more little things coming up naturally. But I also feel confident that if we can time it right with the weather, that we should hopefully have a really good chance with our direct seeding project.
No, I think that'll be great if you're not already competing with cheatgrass coming back in right now. So I think that'll be really good for what you guys are doing. My next question is on the thistle. So how long have you guys been using this fungus?
We started in 2018, and at that time we had identified 2 sites that were primarily all Canada thistle along the river. Throughout the process, we ended up accidentally spraying one of the sites, so we had to throw that one out of our experiment, and that one's just gone back into sort of more traditional management, but we do retain this site. And we go out on an annual basis and apply the fungus usually in the fall. And then we do monitoring in the spring to see how the plants are responding. And also there should be evidence of actually seeing the plants inoculated with the rust fungus. We haven't quite seen that yet, but we have definitely seen a reduction in the viability of the plants in that area. So it seems to be working, but it also is an experiment. Luckily, the fungus is free to us. It's just staff time sprinkling it on all the plants. So it's been a worthwhile endeavor to try to experiment with.
Okay, sounds good. And then the last one is the Section 106. So out of all these surveys that are being completed, each one of them has some sort of project involvement with them. So how many of these are coming under threshold, or how many of these are needing mitigation for long-term projects?
Good question. So pretty much all of these are coming back as no adverse effect. The only one, well, no, they were all pretty much no adverse effect that I can think of. Prison Hill HV area was a long process in working out some issues related to Snyder Avenue, which is also considered historic, but we were able to mitigate all of that based on the project work that we're doing. So that's been exciting.
Lindsay, just a general question. Earlier in the year when we were going through budgets and going through help, and that there was conversation that we weren't able to get as much help because of COVID. And so what has happened now that 6 months and summers, you guys have done so much work, and yay, awesome job. Were you able to get resources, or just and anticipate getting them again in the future?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, unfortunately, due to COVID and other factors, recruitment has been a challenge, not only for us, but for the entire department, and I think the whole world. So we're not alone in that. We were not able to get a seasonal this year. Usually we do, so that was a loss for us. We've kind of backfilled that need by working with interns. So we did have our natural resource intern this past summer. That's a position that we'll fill every year. That's a big help for us. We also, as Greg mentioned, are able to utilize intern help from other agencies, and so that's been helpful. So we just try to find help wherever we can. In terms of budget, staffing, all of that, I do plan on, when budget season comes around in early 2022, I'd like to propose bringing on a full-time maintenance staff person that would work under our maintenance coordinator. We've been in the process of developing our maintenance program the last few years since we brought him on, and we are officially super ready to have more help now. So that will be exciting. And I think given that it's a full-time position with benefits, recruitment should be a little bit easier than trying to find a seasonal. So that's definitely the next step in building our program.
Okay, with that, thank you. We'll move on to 8C, the director's report. Jen?
Thank you. Jennifer Bedge, Parks and Recreation Director. I just wanted to give Greg and Lindsay some more kudos for that Snippleman grant. That is not an easy application process. It's huge, especially the application for water rights. It's really complicated. And Lindsay had to work extra hard outside of the grant process to really convince them that that acquisition was super important to our operation and the future preservation of the wetlands out there. So it was really arduous and they worked really hard. So I just wanted to thank them for all that they have done with that. To piggyback on Greg and Lindsay's comments about the quality of life celebration, we're super excited about what we have coming ahead. To highlight a couple other events that we haven't brought up, we're going to kick everything off with Bonanza, which is the night before the Silver Saddle event. The city is also going to have a float in the parade this year, and we have a really wonderful poster that's going to be on the float, designed by one of our park rangers, Tyler Curver, highlighting the quality of life celebration in a vintage poster, which is great. And I think some of the open space staff are going to be in the parade as well, which will be fun. Lindsay and I are going to be doing a quality of life report at the November 4th board meeting to kind of highlight all that the funding has contributed. And over the years, it's something like $55 million in revenue that have come in from that fund. The Boys and Girls Club has benefited over 1.3 million. There's a lot of other really wonderful statistics about that fund. So we're going to present that at November 4th, and then there'll be a proclamation declaring the whole month as Quality of Life Month in Carson City, which will be great. We also have a dodgeball tournament. There's a historical tour at Silver Saddle Ranch, hikes and bike rides, beginner pickleball, classes at the MAC. The MAC was entirely constructed, designed from the Quality of Life Fund, which is really tremendous. There's a free shooting day at the rifle range, a free swim day at the pool, full moon hikes, junior ranger days, a variety of activities for everybody. And all but one event is free of charge. The one event that there's actually going to be a fee is a fundraiser for our youth scholarship program. So if you go to the website, carson.org, and go to the parks pages, there's an activity guide, and in the activity guide, there's a whole calendar of events for everybody to find that out. I do have some unfortunate news tonight. Is our federal lands bill was unsuccessful. So that's really unfortunate. It was introduced with some other lands bills that were a bit controversial. So while ours seemed really easy, the technical corrections, and we haven't had any, adverse comments about what we had proposed. Just unfortunately the package that went forward, which we have no control over, it just wasn't successful. So we'll be reintroducing that again next session and keep pushing forward for that. So I just wanted to give you an update on that. And then we do have a few vacant positions, just because this is available to the public. A sports field coordinator, full-time park maintenance worker, and full-time office specialists are available within the department, if anyone knows anyone. And then Ben's going to provide a legal update on Buzzy's Ranch for us.
Ben Johnson, Senior Deputy District Attorney for the record. So most of you may know the city's been going through some litigation involving Buzzy's Ranch. It was filed back in the beginning of 2020. A hemp company wanted to plant hemp on the property through the purchase and sale agreement that the city had with the previous owner, James Gerard. And so we were originally scheduled to have trial this month. But about a month ago, the court granted a motion for summary judgment that I filed, which means that the judge, prior to having to have a trial, found that the city did not breach the contract by denying the hemp being grown there, and did find that Mr. Gerard breached the contract by inviting this hemp company onto the program, sort of in contravention of the reason why it was purchased. So I believe there's a little bit time left for appeal, which is entirely possible, but it's certainly good news in terms of securing Buzzy's Ranch for its intended purpose. So we're really thrilled with that result, and I want to thank Jen and Lindsay for their help, as well as Ann Bollinger and Juan Guzman, the former open space directors, who also had a part in some of the witness preparation. So it was really a great team effort.
Okay, thank you, Jen and Ben, for this updates. Anybody have any questions? Yes, Susan, go ahead.
A comment. I think it's great that you'll be going before the supervisors and all these other activities, because if we don't showcase what we're doing, no one else will. And it also helps on all of these. I'm assuming you are, but you mentioned it to let people know this was funded by. This was funded by. Again, it just keeps it front and center, and that there's monitoring, the money is going to specific items. It's showing responsibility and accountability and transparency. So I would just, yeah, kudos on all of you for continuing to tie everything you're doing back into that, because it gives that credibility to the public.
We're going to be doing a really big public outreach component as well. Not only press releases, but reaching out to get some articles online and just to help educate the public about how much this money needs. So when you go shopping in Carson City, you don't really think about it, but 0.25% of your sales tax is going to parks, trails, and open space in Carson City, which is really tremendous. Another part of the messaging that Lindsay and I are going to put out is how much money in grants. It's almost $12 million in grants on top of that money that I told you that we've been able to leverage with those funds. So we don't just use that money, but we try to double down with that and try to get that money out there and doing even more than is possible.
I just want to know if Lindsay's going to wear the poof area in the Nevada Day Parade. That's all I need.
I'm considering it.
Mary? Okay. Casey?
Just about the way, one idea about promoting the fact that 0.25% goes into our parks. You might want to just sort of pitch it as in, when you pay $100 for your groceries, you're paying, 7% sales tax, and then figure out what percentage that is in a real dollar value for people. That makes it a lot more concrete. And you could even just talk about it in terms of, if you want to support Parks and Recreation, don't go to Reno and purchase stuff there. Stay here. But that might be one way to do it. And then, maybe even talk about, if you buy a new car, there's going to be a significant chunk there that goes to Parks and Rec. Do it that way. Just look at the basic, commercial basket of goods that people buy every day and those that they buy once a year, and give people an idea about how much they are actually contributing. So please, value it, be part of it, and use it.
Okay, so moving on to agenda item 9. Do any of the members have any announcements? Okay. 10, future agenda items. Do any of the members have anything they want to have on the next meeting? Rob?
I don't know if this is for future agenda item, but since we had to cancel the kind of meeting that we had planned for early in September, if we could look to do that again, because I think it'd be very beneficial for a lot of the new members on this committee to have something like that.
Yes, agreed. We absolutely will be revisiting that, and most likely, since we're heading into November and the holidays, I'm thinking that's probably going to be after the first of the year. But I think it's very important. There's so much that we want to share and talk with you and Parks and Rec Commission about. So, who's keeping a tally over here? This is a lot. But yes, thank you for bringing that up. We'll make sure that does happen.
Question?
It might be useful to have a doodle poll just so we can, hold things so we don't end up with a lot of conflicts.
Mr. Chairman? Yeah, just wanted to reiterate, we had talked about doing, sorry, you're looking at the right place. Yeah, tricky. Doing that field trip up to the parcel of land there. If we can keep that on the agenda so that we can do that. Makes a lot of difference to actually put eyeballs on the scenery to be able to talk about it later.
Mary, before any more fall, you want to make any comments? Mark?
Mike, I would like to revisit awards from this board. And I know our next meeting's with Parks and Rec, so it might not be appropriate the next meeting, but at our next meeting for open space, I would love to revisit that as a board, if that's possible with the board agreement, actually.
Okay, if there are no more agenda items, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Mr. Chair, sorry, did you do final public comment?
I'm sorry, you're right. Yes, we invite, is there anybody on the phone?
There are no callers on the line at this time.
Thank you, Ben. Now I don't have to go to jail. With that, we are adjourned.